As summer ends and fall begins, now is the time to talk about what has happened. Hey everyone, Natissa here, and welcome back to You Can Grow Too. This video is the review of the 2025 spring and summer season. And I do lump spring with summer because here in the subtropics of Florida, for me, the heat starts early, so do the bugs and all of the other summer things that happen. We have so much to go over and learn through this information, so let's get started. So it all starts in how you prepare for the next season. And in preparing for spring, what I did toward the end of winter was I chopped and dropped a lot of my plants that I didn't need anymore. In the past, it's been so hard to do that because you like to see everything growing. It looks so nice, but I was very diligent about doing that because I have seen the good in chopping and dropping your plants, mulching the ground, and having that mulch break down and better your soil. And here I have a lot of sand for my native soil, so I need to keep chopping and dropping. So that is how I started the season. And in fact, this year and last year, we did not buy any compost from the stores. Normally we do that. We'll get a whole load and just lay it all down in the garden. And that's not a bad thing to do. It really helped us get started, but we are noticing more and more the benefit of just chopping and dropping. So that's how we began our spring season. This also helped with overwhelm because if I do leave everything out in the garden and then the heat starts to come on and the pests start coming in, it's harder for me to get out there and do what I need to do. So that was something I did much better at this year. And like I said, a great way to prepare the soil for spring and the summer that is about to begin. So definitely with spring, we also got to talk about the spring seedlings, and oh my goodness, they were so bad this year. I had my puppy Lunabelle, who I was still busy with, and my seedlings did not get much tending to. In fact, in my notes it says here that I didn't even harden them off. They were the worst seedlings I've ever had. You can even see the color leaving the leaves because of the lack of nutrition and all the crowd growing that was going on in these containers. Even my peppers had flowers on them, and I've never had that before with my seedling starts. So I knew they were not doing too well, but I did still plant them out in the garden and they did pretty good. Even now in the garden, one of those bad seedling peppers is out there and loaded with peppers. So a lot of what I planted out there did work out, but it was a horrible start. As seasons go on, I always realize something, about myself. And this season, starting out, I realized that I don't like to fuss too much in the garden all the time. And sometimes I feel like I have to have a reasonable excuse of why I do something or don't do something. And sometimes, I just don't want to do whatever and I hold it off. Or I just want to do something different even though it's not ideal. And I'm coming to accepting that that is okay. And I've released a lot of anxiety over trying to be a certain way for whatever reason and just being true to who I am as a gardener so I can keep on doing what I'm doing. And that's something I am noticing in myself, is that I'm feeling more comfortable with who I am as a gardener. We have doggies invading the space. So, real life. Lunabelle. I know, I see your toy. We all see your toy, okay? Okay, you go see Minu. Go see Minu. I know she got slobber on me too. Oh. Dogs will be in and out, and birds you'll hear in the background. It's just the way it be. But anyhow, so becoming more secure in myself. And what happens in the videos? Jumping right into the summer seedlings, and something that I've always struggled with in planting for summer is I'm trying to do it earlier in order to beat a lot of our major summer heat. And honestly, it actually kind of begins for me in spring. But spring is also our drought season. So it's a very, it's just difficult to kind of balance the issues that are going on and try to do what is best. But I did have the summer seedlings going earlier before our rainy season. And this year I tried potting mix instead of seed starting mix. And seed starting mix is meant for starting seeds because it is of a finer material. so you can have the seeds germinate better and all that. But I don't know, I just like to try different things just in case, you can't get seed starting mix for whatever reason. So I tried different brands, but I will say the chunkier potting mixes that I've used, it did all right in planting larger seeds, but when it came to the smaller seeds, they germinated and just kind of stayed in their beginning stages of growth and never budged, never grew at all, where everything else around them was growing. So I knew something was wrong. I do attribute it to the potting mix with the larger chunks in it, unless there's another reason that I'm not aware of. But later on, I did use the Miracle-Gro potting mix, and actually all my fall seedlings right now are in that, and it's doing fine. So it is good to know, because I think it is least expensive so far that I'm aware of, that I noticed, to get a big bag of potting mix instead of getting the seed starting mix. But one of these days I need to do just straight up seed starting mix just to compare, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Something I had done this year as well was being more intentional about note-taking about what's happening in the garden. For one, the notes of what I'm going over now, I'm so glad I did, because when I was reviewing what we are talking about, I forgot half of this that happened in the beginning, because we're just kind of going from day to day. So I'm very glad that I was very diligent about taking notes, even if it didn't seem that important. But also in where I planted certain varieties out in the garden. And I did that this year with our watermelons. I had many different varieties growing, and I would just mark down where I placed them in the garden. I think that's such a good habit to do if you want to know what variety you have and all that. But what I do need to get better at in regards to watermelon and note-taking is when I see a fruit forming on the plant, I need to mark it down when I notice it and at least get an idea of when it was pollinated. You want to go out again? Okay. All right, we'll see how long she's out there for. So with note-taking, with the watermelon and when they are pollinated, or at least have a better idea of when they are pollinated, I ran into that issue this year because I did have a couple of watermelon out there that I knew was there for a while, that all the signs of it being ripe were there, and I picked them because I thought they were ready, and they were actually just a few weeks underripe. And I did look back on my footage and notice that, yeah, they did get pollinated a little later than I thought. So I learned from that moment that I need to mark down when these fruits get pollinated, just so I have a better idea of how long they are out in the garden for, to make sure that they are as to full ripeness as I can possibly get them to be. So I want to do better with that. But something I did this year that I've never done before, and I kind of like it, is every season I do weigh how much produce and food I get out of the garden. But I took a little summer break and it felt good. The only things I did weigh were the cucumbers and the watermelon, just because I really wanted to know how many I was going to get of those. But otherwise, when I was harvesting the greens and beans, I just brought them in and prepared them, and it just felt like a nice break. So I might do that in the future, just take a little break from that. I got a new dehydrator, and it's a great way to preserve some of the harvest. And I generally do focus on fresh eating, and someday maybe get into canning, but dehydrating is a great entryway, a great gateway into preserving food. So I've been playing around with that. I dehydrated some carrots and onions, and a lot of moringa, basil. I even had an overflow of passion fruit and lots of other fruit from other events we had gone to. And instead of feeling rushed to eat them all, I dehydrated them and made fruit leathers. If you think of a fruit roll-up that you buy at the store, similar to that, and it was really good. And I've been playing around with the recipes with that. So that was something new this season. Gosh, I'm looking at our notes and it says, April, getting so hot. And yes, like I said, in spring, it's like, I swear, it's like summer. I just lump them together, like I said. And I've been seeing a lot of our perennial flowers blooming. And when something is perennial, they don't take much work, as the years go on. And it was just such an encouragement to me, because I'm learning less work is it's just so nice this time of year, spring and summer. And just to let things grow that are doing well. Instead of fussing with all the annuals that I always keep trying to grow and they don't keep working, it's always the perennials that come through. So springtime for many gardeners might mean, starting fresh, beautiful gardens. everything's getting lush. And for me, it's all about survival because spring is our drought season and things get really hot and I have sandier soil and all that. So I water a lot during this time. Not as much as I should because it's so difficult. It's a large garden. It takes a lot of my time. So it's all about just trying to have plants limp along through the season until the rains come. So I'm not expecting things to look really good at this point in time. This is also the time I mentioned to you in one of those tours that our oak tree had to come down and we needed to get ready for the garden to create pockets of shade, and we have been doing that. And the oak tree did come down toward the end of summer, and oh yes, it's here in the deep south you need some shade. So in the future this is going to be interesting. So I'm thinking more about chop and drop plants so we can keep building our soil and mulching the ground with them. Also more perennials because that can create the pockets of shade throughout the garden as we grow some of our annuals. And I have seen lots of success with that. But a very positive thing that comes out of our drought season is that I'm able to harvest seeds. If you do a lot of seed saving, you know that you don't want to get your seeds wet. You don't want too much humidity and rain on them because your seeds can spoil that way. So it was a perfect time to go do that. And what I've never done before was save seeds from microgreens. I had a lot of Ethiopian kale growing out in the garden and I let that go to seed. It's big and beautiful. And the seed pods to Ethiopian kale, I've noticed anyways, is a cleaner seed. What I mean by that is there's not a lot of bugs living in the plant matter, so I'm just able to crush it and just collect the seed. And we grew microgreens through summer with those seeds. So I thought that's pretty cool. And this spring marked more cucumber success for me, and cucumbers are one of my favorite things to grow and eat from the garden. So this was very exciting. One of my weirdest lessons I learned was actually that in order to get a bigger harvest, you need to grow more plants. And I know that sounds so, well, yeah, of course. But I realized that when I'm watching other gardeners harvest their cucumbers and they're coming in with baskets full, I don't know why, but I guess I'd always think that's from one plant. So I'd grow one plant and I'd only get like a cucumber, every other day. And this year I grew about 3 or 4 in my raised bed and I was getting a couple cucumbers about every day. So that's something I definitely want to do again for next year. Now we're entering literal summertime, and this year we started getting more rain now than we had the last number of years. And it was also the first time I really started planting with the rainy season. Because yes, I did start some summer crops earlier. Like I said, I try to beat the heat, but then we're not getting much rain. I think I started some again when the rains came, but I do know that I did intentionally plant certain crops that need that rain during the rainy season, like the wing bean. I did start those by, I think it was May, because I had to get them up and going so our rains would start about mid-May, and they get more and more as time goes on, which that did happen this year. And our kukuza got that planted out there with the rainy season. I've never done that before. I know that's kind of what people say. But when I started gardening about, 6-7 years ago, you're just starting to learn certain things. And by the time I was learning about growing with the rainy season, we had no rain during our rainy season. So this was the first time for me to intentionally do that and see the benefits. So not only did we get more rain this summer, which has been such a blessing on the garden, and a blessing on me because less of me watering out in the garden, we also had more cloudy days. And these cloudy days helped my husband and I be able to get out in the garden and do some weeding. We also reset a lot of our stones in the garden areas, and everything looked better and felt better. And gosh, such a huge boost to good feelings in the garden, because I admit summertime is kind of my wanting to quit. But it's just amazing to me how just those simple cleanups, just that simple bit of cloudy weather outside and doing a few things out in the garden really helped. Everything looked better and I felt better. And going back to me not wanting to really work in the garden, this was also the time that I kind of learned that I actually do. I just learned more what it is that makes me want to not be out there. And a lot of it really does come down to heat, and the bugs, and that's a lot of our spring and summertime. So it was good to realize that for myself, because sometimes I am always at this point and wondering why I'm doing what I'm doing, don't want to be out there, and so to understand truly what was kind of getting me to not want to be out there is just weirdly encouraging, I guess. It's nice to pinpoint the reasons why. I've also come to terms with that it is okay to harvest in not an ideal way. And what I mean is, the best way perhaps to harvest your garden is to harvest it and bring it to the kitchen and prepare it in that moment. And, I do my best to do that. But when it comes to summer, I just know I'm not going to want to be out there. So if I'm able to harvest more and just use part of it for the meal today and part of it for the meal tomorrow, that is okay. And I noticed myself getting a little stressed thinking, oh, this is not the ideal way to do it. It's losing nutrition because I, cut it off the plant early, yada, yada. But I also learned that we really stress ourselves more, and it's bad for our health to worry about not being ideal instead of just doing it. And that made me feel a lot better doing it that way instead of worrying about it, because ultimately, if I don't want to do it in an ideal way, I'm not going to do it at all. And that's horrible. And it's much better to have that big bulk of harvest. Have some of it now, have some of it later, instead of not doing it at all. So I'm very glad to being more accepting and being okay with that. As we were getting into summer and the rains were coming, a lot of self-seeded plants started showing up. And this was from the winter garden. I did very well at, getting things chopped and dropped right away, but there were a lot of things that did go to seed. And they were coming up. And that does sound great, but I also noticed a lot of the pests rolling in that, try to eat at those plants because they're growing out of season. One of those pests were the harlequin bugs. I was seeing a lot of them. So I was kind of wondering if maybe next year I shouldn't let as many plants go to seed. I don't know. It was just a question I had. And speaking of pests, this year, our pests hit us hard. Like I said, the harlequin beetles, the leaf-footed bugs, stink bugs, and this was just overlapping from the last couple of years of just having so many pests. So many. So many. I don't always record them because I don't really like recording bugs, but they were there. And something I have learned and should have done years ago was to go to my husband and ask him to help me with the bugs, because I don't like dealing with bugs like that, pests. I have a hard time with that. In fact, I did a whole video on that because it really, I don't feel good about it at all. I really have a hard time with them. But he's always told me when I need help, when I see the pests come in, to let him know. And I admit I haven't done that because I just felt like that's a horrible thing to ask him to do. But this year, I finally came to him and said, this is just way out of hand. So he came in and really spent multiple evenings just cleaning out the pests that he's seen and really got it under control. And the biggest lesson I learned was to never let it get out of control like that again. And so when the bugs start coming in, which is around spring, to really go out there and just manage them as we see them instead of just letting them go, because that was too much. This is also the season that I begin to question if I'm going to continue my super hybrid watermelon that I have been working on. I've had this featured in one of my single seed challenges. Yeah, it was last year. And my plan was to continue that hybrid, just to keep breeding it with some sort of watermelon, just because I thought that was cool. But I'm wondering if I should even do that, because it did work this year. I had it growing, but every single watermelon on that plant split. And I did have it growing in my cornerstone bed. I don't know if it was where it was growing that did it, or maybe just the breeding of it just didn't have strong genetics. I don't know. I'm really getting into what is called, I think it's called adaptive gardening. The term used to be landrace gardening, but basically they changed it to adaptive gardening, because what you're doing is trying to adapt certain breeds of whatever you're trying to grow to your garden area, to your climate, to how you take care of your garden. So you can select a variety with certain genetics that are going to work well for you. So that's something I was thinking about because, I was having fun doing the super hybrid watermelon project, but I don't know, maybe I just need to focus on just what's working out in the garden and going on from there. So that's something I'm thinking about. Not intentionally breeding, but having nature select it for me. Something I encountered that I never have before was on my cassava plants, my tropical root crop. It got infested with mites. I saw little speckles on the leaves, and soon after they started shriveling up. But I looked under the leaves expecting to see spider mites, which are those little red mites that you can see. I mean, it's so little, I don't think I can show you a picture of it. But I didn't see any, so I thought, oh, I don't know. But after going on the internet and doing my best searching about it, there are other mites out there, like green mites, that you just don't really see. You just see them affecting the leaves. But as time went on, which wasn't much time, the plant started dying back and would kill portions of it. So mites on cassava, and I've read that it could be because of extended heat and dry periods, which is funny because it has been raining more, but perhaps it's just not raining enough. Because yes, we're getting more rain than before, but not as much as I think we should be getting. But from my readings, it says you just need to maybe spray the plant down and get under the leaves, because that's where the mites are, and it helps kind of wash them away and displace them and keep them from, I guess they float through the air, and they have been spreading on all the cassava plants, so that is not good. So now that I have a better understanding of what is happening, I'm going to try to keep up on that. Spray those cassavas down. Experiments and projects that we have done this spring and summer season. The first one was a video that I had done called Growing in Sand, something to that effect. And it was, well, I'll put this video and all the videos I mentioned down in the links in the description. But basically, I did an experiment on how to grow food if you couldn't buy any products from the grocery store and you had to use what you have, like food scraps, paper waste, and we really did grow our own food that way. I do have a spot where we do make our own compost, but to bury food scraps in the garden after this project that I had done, it just made it more real to me that it really does work. So I'm really going forward with other ideas and how to do it in a more orderly way, so we'll see. Another project I had done, and I do it every year, it's actually what started this channel, is the single seed challenge. So for this year's single seed challenge, I chose 2 noodle bean varieties and I planted them in food containers and wanted to see how each one would grow and how many beans we would get from each plant. So check that video out, it's in the description, and also a little overview of what the challenge is. And just saying, I wasn't very clear on it in that video because I was not sure at the time of filming it for you, but now that we are coming to the end of summer, my favorite noodle bean is probably the Thai soldier long bean because it just keeps going. It never has really any problems. It is starting to show a bit now, but it's also starting to get a little cooler outside. The season is ending. But no matter how many dry beans we get off of that plant, it just keeps on producing. So that might be my favorite, but I do plan on still growing that Guyana long bean because my goodness, just to grow a bean, like not the plant, the actual bean, to be close to 3 foot long, that's just a lot of fun. So I'm still planning on growing both next year. I also done a video in spring that was actually not a project or an experiment. It was really just a message that was really on my heart. It was the 5-year anniversary of the year 2020, and I give 5 reasons why we should celebrate it. And if you hadn't checked that video out, I am putting it down in the description because I think personally that might be the most important video that I've ever posted. So I encourage you to check it out. New crops this spring and summer season. One of them was an edible cactus that I will say was a fail. I think it was because of the roly-polies eaten down at the base of it. I mean, who kills cactuses? That's the question. But I do have some I still didn't plant out yet. That's here in my sunroom, so I'll have to get that out while it's not super hot and maybe have it established for next year. Also a new perennial basil. Oh, I forgot to look up the name. I think it starts with the letter A. It didn't really do very well for me as the African blue basil has, and I've given them both the same attention, so, the new perennial basil I got, maybe not so good. But African blue basil, way better, My purple basil did very well, and my cardinal basil. That is an annual, but that is still going strong in the garden right now when my regular green sweet basil and my prized wonderful purple basil, they're both done. They're both done, but the cardinal basil is going on, and that is a new basil to me. Definitely going to try again. I also tried the toothache plant. I tried it from seed before. It was hard to germinate, but I did get a little plant and I did plant it out there, and we did get some flowers. And it's a medicinal that you put in your mouth and you chew it up, and it's supposed to numb your mouth for, in case you have a sore or anything. It was fun to try. It did die. I thought I was taking care of it decently enough, and it did get some shade, which is probably needed in our summertime. But yeah, I don't have it now, but maybe we'll try it again. I have different gingers and turmerics out in the garden, and in fact I have it planted out in the rock bed. Not the place I'd want it to grow, but it was the only space I had at that moment, so I'm excited to see how they're going to turn out. And a yellow fleshed cassava. It's supposed to be a yellow color in the root, so I'm excited to have that turn out. I mean, the mites did get to it, but we'll see. I also tried for the first time callaloo amaranth. It's very common. I didn't know it got that big. It did very well. I didn't eat too much leaves from it because I just wanted to see how it would go, but I did have some and they were large and it tasted really good, so I'm going to be probably planting that again. I have it self-seeding all around the garden, and I actually just harvested some of that just the other day. Ooh, one I'm very excited about is conkerberry. It's still very small out in the garden. We just got it as a little plant. It's supposed to have like dark blue, maybe purple berries. I don't know how long it has to go until it starts producing, but it's looking promising. And I have to talk of this one, my edible air potato. It's a very rare variety I got from Daisy the Good. If you've heard of David the Good on YouTube, his daughter has her own seed shop and I got it from her. And it's related to the invasive air potato that used to be here in Florida and very poisonous, but this is an edible variety and it's growing very well. You can harvest the tubers in the ground in the winter time or leave them in the ground and they come back, but they grow aerial roots or aerial tubers that you can eat or also plant and create a whole new plant from them. But what I did encounter as well is these little, actually rather very beautiful beetles, but it is the air potato leaf beetle that was released by University of Florida to help keep down the invasive poisonous species that was growing out in the wild. And the one that I'm growing and the one that has been growing in the wild, they're both the same species. So that beetle has found my yams, found my plant. So now we are having to pick them off just to control them so they don't destroy our yam. I do call it my edible air potato, but it is a type of yam. So I do use that word interchangeably. And speaking of yam, I did get another variety for me to grow here, and that is the ube yam. And that root will be a nice purple color. I mean, the vine itself is gorgeous. It has some nice bright purple up the vine and on the leaves. Really excited about that one. And I also have another yam growing. It is called Name yam. It's spelled like the word name. And this I bought at the grocery store, and I cut it up into pieces and planted it out in the garden. I don't even think I filmed any of it because I just didn't really think it was going to work, and I was just getting it out there. But it did, and it grew wonderfully last year. I didn't dig any up because with yams you can let them grow and they'll grow big and lush, and when fall and winter comes it dies back and all that energy goes down into the root, in the big tuber, I guess you could say. But when it dies back, you don't have to harvest it. You can leave it in the ground and it will come back. And if you keep doing that, the root will get bigger and bigger as long as nothing happens to it. And so I didn't harvest any of the yams, any of the Name yams last winter. I just let them in the ground and I wanted to see if they'd come back. I had 7 plants out there and all 7 came back. So this year I think I am going to harvest one because I'm really curious to see how big the root could get on year 2. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to call this another new crop to me because I did try it a year ago. That is the Cuckoozy gourd, but it just didn't do well. I think my timing was way off. But this year I planted it with the rains and took care of it, took the caterpillars off, kept it watered for the first few weeks, and it has covered a portion of my fence. There are moments where it's not looking good, but it just keeps sending out more healthy, strong branching vines. And I see a lot of male flowers, but I don't see any female flowers. But I am still considering this a very promising crop, and I consider it my new one this year because it's just doing so well. So if nothing happens this year, I do plan to try it again next year. This crop feels like it's new to me, but it's not. But I discovered a good use for it, and that is green papaya. Papaya grows so easily here without much work from me at all. And for the first time, I really sat down and tried some recipes with green papaya. That basically means not fully ripe. We don't really care for ripe papaya. So I looked up a recipe, and I didn't even have all the ingredients, but I did as much as I could with what I had, and it was great. We loved it so much, we started planting it all around the garden because we see so much promise for our meals with it. And last but not least, something I discovered very recently because I consider it my fall plantings, and I start some of these fall plantings in late summer, and that is, I think I'm pronouncing it right, is tatume squash. Other names for it like calabacita, although that might be a general term for certain squash, I thought I read somewhere, but I hear people call it calabacita, or Mexican zucchini. And I have a hard time growing summer squash. I cannot grow the regular zucchinis and common things like that just because of disease, and those green caterpillars are so destructive. But I did harvest my first tatume squash just the other day, and it is looking so promising for something that I can grow going into fall, maybe even spring. We'll try that next year, but I don't know, I'm feeling like this might be a summer squash for me. Things that we had really good harvests on this year that really stood out. I mentioned cucumbers, that was earlier this spring. I have our summer cucumbers planted, well, it's summer going into fall. I might need to do more quick varieties from summer going into fall because I feel like they're a little behind because of, well, it might be our rain. We have cloudier days, which can be nice, but then it might stunt the growth. I don't know. I mean, some of them are looking really good right now. But yeah, we had a wonderful spring cucumber harvest this year. The passion fruit vine that was growing up our front yard tree recovered beautifully from the hurricanes. A lot of the fruit that did come off the tree during the hurricane was really, really bad. It ripened horribly, but it came back with a vengeance and gave us so much fruit, and that's when I started playing around with the dehydrator, making our own fruit leathers. But unfortunately, that had to come down because we had to take down our front yard tree, but we'll be talking more about that in the future. Bananas. We had our best bunch yet. It was about 2 foot long from banana tip to banana tip on that bunch. And yeah, it wasn't fully ripened when we picked it. The plant fell over. We just brought it in, and we did have to compost some of the bananas just because of how it ripened, but for the most part they still tasted pretty good. Again, not ideal, but it was still better to have some of our bananas than not at all. This summer season, I was finally able to appreciate my chaya, my tropical greens that are perennial here. It is a green you do have to cook because eating it raw, there's cyanide in it, and you need to boil the leaves and cook it out. Maybe you can cook it other ways to get the cyanide out. I don't know about that, but I just do boil it first. But my goodness, I've grown it for the past couple of years, but they got this, I don't even know what it is. It's some sort of maybe mite or scale, and I cut the plant down hoping to get rid of whatever it was, and it would just come back, and really each leaf was quite inedible. But I do have a different variety. I have it growing in a different place, and my goodness, it is so good. I appreciate it so much. In fact, I have some in the refrigerator right now that I'm going to add to my meals. And I got to say, my favorite fruit, or one of my favorite fruits that we are growing, is the Jamaican cherry tree. I did have it growing on the side of the house in past tours. It died in the container I was growing it in. I think the roots rotted. There were other factors as well that were very questionable, but we got a new tree, put it in the ground, and it is fruiting, and it is one of my favorite fruits. And it's been very inspirational to me to start looking into more fruits, because I do want more fruits coming out of our property best we can. And oh, if you live in the subtropics, try the Jamaican cherry tree. Especially if you like cotton candy, you're gonna love it. It tastes just like it and very productive. I cannot forget to mention watermelon. Oh my goodness, the past couple years I've been having such a difficult time growing. I even had videos separately about my struggle with watermelon. It was also my single seed challenge last year, if you saw that video. Oh my goodness, yeah, watermelons, I thought I could never grow them again because I used to grow them very well. But this year, my goodness, we grew a little over 60 pounds of watermelon, and all of it came from just 2 plants. I mean, I did have others growing around the garden, and yes, we did lose a lot of watermelon to splitting, and one of them rotted, but we did harvest so many watermelons still. And the largest watermelon I think I ever grown was this year. It was 18 pounds. This harvest has restored my faith in that I can still grow watermelon. It was a bad couple of years before, but hopefully things are going to get better because my goodness, it was such a bright, wonderful spot of the season. It made me like summer again, which is saying a lot. Something that I'll mention here that might matter is the 2 watermelon plants that worked were growing in a raised bed, specifically my Titanic beds with the archway. And I had other plants growing in ground around the garden, and the plants that had fruit on those in ground in the garden, they split, and one of the fruit rotted, but I think that might have had to do with a critter possibly, but all the other ones split. And in the raised Titanic beds, my tall metal beds, they did not. They were the best watermelon. I didn't lose any in there at all, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Something to think about and watch for next season. And last, and definitely not least, is summer lettuce. Here in Florida, that is unheard of, and it tasted good. I had lettuce self-seed in one of my flower pots. It was like, probably mid-spring, and it started coming to be able to harvest very close to summer. And I thought, I don't know how these are going to work. Are they going to taste good? They were growing under some shade under my moringa tree, and I was keeping them watered, and the variety was a heat-tolerant variety, and I think it was called Sierra. I don't 100% know because it came from a mixed seed packet of heat-tolerant varieties. But my goodness, I am definitely going to push my plantings of growing lettuce in spring, see how far I can go. Can I grow lettuce through summer? I don't know. I might be able to. And funny enough is I did try to plant lettuce indoors thinking I could, still grow through summer, and that just wasn't working. But yeah, it worked outside very well with the conditions. So we're going to definitely try that again next year. And right now, in my fall plantings, I do have lettuce growing, so I am starting them off earlier and getting them out in the garden. So we're going to extend our lettuce harvest quite possibly. So a couple of new things that have happened late summer is, like I said, we had to take the oak tree down. And in the backyard, that was a nice healthy shade for the garden, because here in the deep south, it's not just the heat, it's like the sun itself is closer, and it's very dangerous to our plants and ourselves as gardeners. So it's kind of sad and concerning to have that tree come down. And like I said, we've been working on pockets of shade in the garden to help the plants because they need some shade. But also, when those trees came down, we had to clear a lot of the area around it. We had to take out everything that was on the carport side, so that way the tree company could come in and out. And during that time, we had to take down, like I said, the front yard tree. That's where the passion fruit vine was growing, because that was a liability. And everything there got cleared out. So there are a lot of new spaces that need to be developed. And we have a lot of different plans already in what we're doing. Trying to get a lot more chop and drops there because we need mulch. Also trying to be more realistic because, of course, there's so many things I want to do, but, you've got to think about, the resources you have, the time, whatever things, space, all that. You got to think about those before you just start going in at it. So I'm really trying to pull myself back, but still planting things and moving forward, so I'm doing something. And we do have things going on right now. Like I said, in one section where the oak tree was, we are getting our chop and drops in there. in the carport side that was cleared. We do have some self-seeded watermelon along the south side of the house that I'm trying to take care of to see if we can grow watermelon through fall and winter, because it's going to get more heat because of that wall and possibly more sun because of the oak tree is not there. And we also have a very successful looking Seminole pumpkin that I just stuck an old seedling in there. I didn't know where else to put it, and it is looking really good. So this is a whole new experimental zone. And in the front yard where that passion fruit tree has been taken out, we did put back our pineapples there. I have a self-seeded pumpkin plant that just came up right between the pineapples so perfectly and is looking so good. We're going to see how that goes. And we also have plans with muscadine grapes going around the perimeter of the property. So a lot of plans, hopefully a Yopon holly in the front as well. That is a native caffeine plant. And I have hopes for carrots and growing peas out in the front yard. So we'll see about that. I'm very excited. It was, I'll admit, a little disheartening to clear out all those spaces because I did have a lot of plants growing in them. But realistically and honestly with myself, it wasn't really the best use of the spaces. So this is kind of like a reset, a restart to make things better. And so far, I don't know, it feels very promising. I'm very excited. So for our fall seedlings, which I actually do start in late summer, is already starting crazy. They're already getting very leggy. I have been very diligent about trying to not let them crowd grow in their seed starting cells because then they get leggy trying to reach for light and nutrition and all that. So I've been good about that, but still leggy. I was discouraged but encouraged because I remembered my leggy seedling video, and we follow my leggy seedlings from seedling stage all the way to harvest, and it turned out very well. So I'm feeling okay about what's going on. Yeah, this is not ideal, but it's still going to work out pretty well. It always does. This always happens to me. And I've been planting tomatoes out. I'm still going to do more. I did my rutabaga planting, or started the other day. And out there, I already have bitter melons, that tatume squash I was telling you about. I consider all that my fall plantings because we're going into that season and things are looking, like I said, maybe not ideal, but still very good. If I could define this past spring and summer season, I would say that it is all about having realistic expectations, because spring and summer for me is a very difficult time to grow. And when I grasp how it really is and how I really feel and what goes on, I actually weirdly feel better about it in the end when I expect it and I come to accept that. Also, this season was very evident to me of how sometimes we have bad seasons or good seasons. Sometimes we think we'll never be able to grow this thing again, and then the next year we can. So just remember to keep trying and keep moving forward, because yeah, maybe this is a bad year or maybe this is a good year. Just take it for what it is and yeah, just move forward. And I'm so glad that this year happened to be my best summer season yet. Thanks to the realistic expectations, thanks to the rain, and I'll say thanks for me to keep going and keep trying, and I hope that you do that too. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and check out all the videos, and all the videos in the description, and as always, there's more videos to come. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.